Hello and welcome to our fall community celebration. My name is Gerald Sabin and I'm a new faculty member here at the school. It's my pleasure to serve as your host for this virtual gathering of graduates, students, staff, and alumni in the School of Public Policy and Administration's graduate programs in Indigenous Policy and Administration. Our program is honored and proud to operate on the traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation and in a city whose life has been shaped by longstanding Métis and Inuit communities that have made Ottawa the beautiful meeting place and crossroads that it is for the peoples who call it home. Today, we'll be joined by President Margaret Froh of the Métis Nation of Ontario and Professor Graeme Auld, Director of the School of Public Policy and Administration, each of whom will be sharing congratulatory messages for our graduates and offering well wishes on the start of this most unusual term. We'll hear from Professors Catherine Minich, Catherine Graham, and Francis Abel, as well as our community coordinator and graduate administrator, Ms. Sheila Grantham. And later, you'll have an opportunity to virtually mingle and to reconnect in breakout rooms during the informal portion of the event. But to kick things off with our first of two musical performances, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Conlon Delbaere-Sawchuck. Conlon?
Good afternoon. My name is Conlon Delbaere-Sawchuck, and I'm from the Red River Territory. I'm Métis, and I'm going to sing a song for you called Chanson de la Grenouillère. This song is known as the unofficial Métis national anthem, and it tells the story of a battle between the Bois Brûlés, led by Cuthbert Grant, who captured Orkney traders who belonged to the Hudson's Bay Company, and the governor, in response to this, George Semple, gathered an army from his fort to meet the Métis on Frog Plain. Now, the Métis who fought in this battle, they were buffalo hunters. They were very well skilled at sort of hunting, but that also translated to being effective soldiers, whereas the governor really gathered an army of whoever he could, and so these were sort of not the greatest soldiers. So what happened is it really was a bit of a skirmish when the Métis decided to send an ambassador, the Bois Brûlés, who were led by Cuthbert Grant. They sent an ambassador to talk to George Semple and the governor to try and de-escalate the situation. And here, a shot rang out. Now, there was some, we don't know whether it was a shot that came from the Métis or the Hudson's Bay Company English side, but a battle broke out, and the governor, George Semple, along with many of his army, we'll say, were killed at the Battle of Seven Oaks. So here we have Chanson de la Grenouillère. Voulez-vous écouter chanter une chanson de vérité? Le 19 de juin, la bande des Bois Brûlés sont arrivés comme des braves guerriers. En arrivant à la Grenouillère, nous avons pris 3 prisonniers. 3 prisonniers des Acadiens qui sont ici pour plier mon pays. Nous avons agi comme des gens d'honneur, nous avons envoyé un ambassadeur. Le gouverneur voulait vous arrêter. Pour un petit moment, nous voulons vous parler. Le gouverneur qui est enragé, il dit à ses soldats, Tirer, le premier coup, c'est l'anglais qui a tiré. Ambassadeur, ils ont manqué tuer. Ambassadeur, ils ont manqué tuer. Le gouverneur qui se croit encore, il veut agir avec rigueur. Le gouverneur qui se croit encore, à son malheur agit trop de rigueur. À son malheur agit trop de rigueur. Si t'as bien vu pour ses populaires, il a parti pour les épouvanter, étant parti pour les épouvanter. Il s'est trompé, il s'est bien fait tuer. Il s'est trompé, il s'est bien fait tuer. Le gouverneur qui se croit encore, il veut agir avec rigueur. Le gouverneur qui se croit encore, à son malheur agit trop de rigueur. À son malheur agit trop de rigueur. À son malheur agit trop de rigueur. Merci. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Conlon. Thank you very much. I'd now like to invite Professor Catherine Minich, who will read the names of our graduates from this past year. To our graduates, we're proud of all you've contributed to our community during your time with us, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish next. Professor Minich, over to you.
Well, thank you, Jerry. And also thank you for the opening. It does make me feel like we need a theme song for our program. That would be, you know, a really fun way to add to the celebration here. So my congratulations to the students who are finishing the program. Just your interest and attention, and to be able to take the time out of your lives to work on these subject areas and reflection. It's just really great. And it's also from my side of the desk, I guess it's always really exciting to see students come through these. So I'm really happy to be a part of your ceremony, to be able to read this list of graduates. So I'll begin with Cleo, Lynn, Big Eagle, Marlisa Brown, Rebecca Mary Madelaine Hammond, Rachelle Hawthorne, Alanna Dianne Hein, Eleanor Garner Hornbeck, Rosemary Irwin, Amelia Johnson, Christopher Eugene Lechkobit Carpenter, Kiara Ann Locken, Matilda Madekufamba, Claire Owen, Anna Stojanoska, Meredith Claire-Élyse Webb, and Sarah Frances Yanku. Congratulations.
Thank you, Catherine, and congratulations again to all of our graduates. Now I invite Ms. Sheila Grantham, our community coordinator and graduate administrator, to introduce our very special guest, President Margaret Froh. Sheila?
Hi, well, it is my absolute honor to invite President Margaret Froh of the Métis Nation of Ontario to offer her remarks. President Froh was elected President of the Métis Nation of Ontario in 2016. She's the first woman to serve in that role, and I have to say she's one of my favorite favorite leaders. She's really worked hard to amplify the voices of, as a Métis woman, it's important to me. She's worked hard to amplify the voices of Métis women, Two-Spirit, non-binary. It's just amazing the work that she has done, and it's so important for the Métis Nation, especially at this time. Anyways, so the first woman to serve in that role, originally from the Qu'Appelle Valley, President Froh has lived in Ontario for 20 years. She's a lawyer educated at the University of Toronto, where she serves as an adjunct professor. She has had a distinguished legal career working on behalf of the Métis, First Nations, and Inuit peoples. She has served our communities in elective and executive positions on boards of Indigenous community organizations, associations, and businesses in Ontario and across Canada. She's joining us today from, I believe, Barrie. I'm going to guess Barrie.
You are correct.
Yeah, where she lives with her partner, Rachel, and is proud auntie of, wow, 26 nieces and nephews. Whoa. We are grateful that she's able to join us and share her time today. Please join me in welcoming President Froh to the school.
Thank you. I like the silent applause. It's lovely. And it's actually, it's almost 30 years since I've been in Ontario. I moved here in 1993 to go to law school, and I've been here ever since. And so I wanted to say hello. I'm delighted to be here with Carleton's Indigenous Policy and Administration program folks. So Tanshi Kioao, it's nice to see all of you. And thank you very much for the kind invitation to be with you for this fall community celebration. And I really want to offer a very hearty congratulations to all of the graduates. This is when I was reading a bit more about where I'm a bit familiar with this program, and I know Francis and I had sort of kind of communicated a while back around the creation of this program, and I'm really delighted to see where it's come to and to see the caliber of work that's coming out of it, and also frankly the caliber of work that's coming into it. And so and I'm looking in particular at my friend Yana and the work that she's beginning with her PhD as an example. So congratulations to all of the graduates, and Sheila, you and everyone that is working to support students through this work and doing your own work. I think this is really wonderful, and it's extraordinary that we see this program established. And so whether you're finishing your program or you're just coming in or you're midway through and you're working your way through your program, congratulations, because this is significant to create this kind of space within our post-secondary system, and to give all of you as students the opportunity to really dig in on what are no doubt really interesting and important topics. And I'd love to actually spend the day with you just hearing from all of you about the work that you are doing, the research and the writing that you're doing. And I will say that it's so needed, it's so necessary. And so a lot of my work really is focusing on the governing, but you know, in terms of the work that we're doing, whether it's in the development and design and delivery of programs and services or our assertion of rights, we really need people out there that are researching and writing to help inform and help guide how it is that we are moving forward with the work that we are doing in the area of self-government. So I wanted to start by acknowledging I am in fact in Barrie, beautiful Barrie, which is, it's got a very long history, this land. More recently Anishinaabe territory and the home of the Georgian Bay Historic Métis community, of which I'm now living in this community. I'm blessed to be here. And yes, as Sheila's pointed out, I was the first woman elected into this role and recently re-elected into this role for my second term just this past June. And I'm one of the first and one of the few two-spirited LGBTQ leaders, Indigenous leaders in Canada that are serving at this provincial and national level. And that's something that I always speak about, and I feel very strongly that that's part of my responsibility as well. I was asked to come and just spend a few minutes with you as part of a celebration of your graduates and a reflection on the work that you're doing. And I'm really mindful right now, you can't probably hear it, but my neighbor's kids are screaming across the street and there's lots of traffic. It's been a very interesting summer, as I'm sure it has been for all of you. I'm really mindful of the fall equinox that has just passed, and you can really feel that that switch has been flicked and that we really are now moving into a new season. And it's been a while. I told you I started law school in '93, so that gives you a sense of the last time that I had to start a new program in September. But it really is a time of reflection and repose. It's a time of work, busyness, cleaning up the garden. A lot of our citizens are right now prepping to go out and do that fall harvest. Maybe if they're lucky, bring home a deer or a moose to feed their family and the community, the elders in the community for the winter. And it's also a really exciting time as we're planning for a lot of the work that we need to be doing over the coming months, especially as we head into the cold time. And of course, we just, this is not always the case, but we just had a speech from the throne. And And we're at a really interesting time within our country's history, politically, I believe. And of course, all of this happening in the context of COVID-19 and the challenges that are posed with that. And all of this also happening at a time where I think people's voices are rising up to challenge inequities and inequalities within our systems of government, within our systems of justice, if you can call them that. And in particular, the Black Lives Matter movement and the very loud calls for justice that have been coming out with respect to the treatment of Indigenous people, First Nations, Inuit and Métis people within Canada. And so it's there's a lot going on. And I'm really mindful of that right now. And I always find it that way. I don't know if you find it that way, but at the turn of the seasons, there is a real energy that comes with that. And so I'm being mindful and cognizant of that right now. It actually is also, we've just finished marking Pali Day, which occurs on September 19th every year. It's the anniversary of the Supreme Court decision in R.V. Pali, which was a case, it's actually the case for proving Métis rights under Section 35 of the Constitution. And it was a case that was advanced by the Métis Nation of Ontario on behalf of all Métis across Canada. And it's an important day for us to be able to mark and to remember Steve Pali. It was actually Steve and his son Roddy Pali, who are members of the Métis community up in the historic Sault Ste. Marie area, that went out in October of 1993, actually, and harvested a moose. And for the first time in their family's history, they didn't do it in secret. And they said, we're harvesting this moose, it's for food for our family for the winter and for our community. They hung it in the front yard, and as fate would have it, it was only, I understand, a question of hours before someone had called MNRF and they had conservation officers show up at their door, and they were charged. And it took 10 years for that case to wind its way all the way through all levels of court. And at every single level of court, we were victorious. And finally, on September 19th, 2003, the Supreme Court of Canada issued a unanimous victory in the Pali decision. And it was, while 1982 marked the establishment of Section 35 of our Constitution, and that articulation, that we hereby recognize and affirm the Aboriginal and treaty rights of the Aboriginal peoples of Canada, it was a completely meaningless, it were just words on paper when it came to the Métis, until that decision in 2003, where the court finally found that yes, there are Métis, yes, they exist in the Sault Ste. Marie area, and here is the test on how they can prove Métis rights under Section 35. And up until that moment in time, we had spent decades with words on paper recognizing us as an Indigenous people, words on paper recognizing our rights, but no respect for those and no recognition or articulation of those. So that the victory in Pali is something that we always celebrate within the Métis Nation of Ontario, but something that I think is really important for people to understand, that the court decision in Pali has actually been the foundation for virtually every advance that we have made since that time. It's been the foundation for the negotiation of things like harvesting agreements with the province, and not just here in Ontario, but other provinces as well have been successful. Métis governments have been successful in negotiating harvesting agreements in other provinces, all because of the victory in Pali. It's also been the core of some of the advances that we've been able to make in terms of signing framework agreements here in Ontario with the government to actually advance this work of reconciliation. And of course, more recently, and I don't know if this is on your radar or not, but in June 27th of 2019, we signed the first ever core self-government agreement, the Métis self-government recognition and self-government agreement with the government of Canada, the first of its kind in the history of the world, of the planet. And we signed that next to and with our sister governments of the Métis Nation Saskatchewan and the Métis Nation of Alberta. And in doing so, again, the first of its kind in that agreement, also the very first agreement in the history of Canada that actually provides upfront recognition of an Indigenous government in that process of negotiating self-government. So it was an enormous victory for us to get to that table. And that agreement also sets out a very clear path forward for us to do our work of getting to that point of full recognition or full implementation of our inherent right of self-government. So it's an exciting time. I think it's needless to say, it's an exciting time for the Métis Nation of Ontario and for our sister governments in Alberta and Saskatchewan as well. There's a lot of work to be doing. And of course, this is not new work. Self-government has actually been one of the prime objectives that were outlined by our citizens when the Métis Nation of Ontario was formed as an entity some almost 30 years ago. And that's recorded right there in our statement of prime purpose as one of the key focuses, our key objectives for the Métis Nation of Ontario. But frankly speaking, it's been the vision of our ancestors for a very long time. And in fact, one of the things that we will also be recognizing this year, on November 16th each year, we mark Louis Riel Day, which is not the anniversary of his birth. It's actually the anniversary of his hanging. And it's an opportunity for us to reflect on that vision of self-government that again, our ancestors were very clear about. And we're finally now, many generations later in a position where, thanks to some very strategic work that we have done and relationships that we have built, that we're finally at a point where that dream of self-government is finally close to becoming a reality for us as Métis people. And when I think about that and how far we've come, even just in the last few years, let alone within my generation, I think it's really quite outstanding. There's a lot of work to be done as we build towards that full recognition and full implementation of our inherent right. And that includes things like building a constitution, which I'm really excited about because I love being out in community. I love talking to our citizens, and I love blue skying that, establishing that vision for what it is that we want our future to look like for Métis in Ontario. So constitution building, lawmaking is very much our work over the coming months and years, but it's something that we will accomplish. And I know that we'll accomplish. It's been something that, as I said, we've been talking about and dreaming about for many generations. And I think that finally we'll be in a position where we can truly call ourselves Otipinisuak, the people who govern themselves, that we are the bosses of ourselves. So that is where we are at right now in a very high level. You did ask me to give a quick update in terms of where we've come from and where it is that we're heading. And so I wanted to leave you with that little bit of our story, but also some really encouraging words for all of you for, as I said earlier, the work that you will be undertaking in your research and in your writing. As I mentioned before, that's really important. It's really important that we have good, strong minds looking at important issues and thinking them through and sharing thoughts. And I'm looking forward to see what wonderful things will come out of this graduating class and the graduating classes to come from Carleton's Indigenous Policy and Administration program. So with that, I wanted to say thank you, merci very much for the invitation to attend and participate. I'm sorry that I can't stay with you for the whole thing. I've got another meeting that begins in 3 minutes. But thank you so much, Colin, for the beautiful songs to lead us in, and Francis and Gerald and others. Thank you very much for the invitation. And Sheila, thank you for thinking of me and extending the invite. And to all the rest of you, good luck with all of the work that you're undertaking. And I look forward to the opportunity to connect with you when we're able to, and to hearing about the great work that you're undertaking. Merci.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, President Froh, for joining us and for sharing those kind words. And good luck with your next meeting.
Oh, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'd like to now call on Professor Graeme Auld, Director of the School of Public Policy and Administration, to say a few words. Professor Auld?
Thanks, Jerry. That's a tough act to follow. It's certainly a real honor. It's the first time I've ever followed a president in speaking remarks on Zoom. But really, it's a great honor to be here with you today. It would be lovely to do this in person, but a chance to celebrate the accomplishments of our students is something that I take very seriously, and that I know my colleagues really, really relish. Any chance we can get to do this. And really, this is for those of you who are finishing, it's a chance to mark and recognize hard work, dedication each of you have brought to your program of study. And for those of you who are beginning or midway through, it's a chance to take a deep breath, prepare to mark the change of a season, as President Froh said, and dig in for some new learning in the weeks and months to come. I also just want to say a huge thanks to each of you for the trust you've given us in joining the school and giving us the opportunity to embark on a learning journey with each of you. Learning is really not something that is an instructor or professor passing on information to students. It's really a mutual process. It's a collective enterprise. It's about learning about each other, learning how we learn, helping each other along the way. And that's a set of practices that occur in the classroom, but then spill over into life and careers when you leave the classroom. And so I really want to stress that those of you who are just graduating, remember those classroom experiences, remember the community that the school has offered you and has welcomed you into, and extend that community, build on that, know that the people that you have taken classes with, that you're currently taking classes with, are a source of support, a source of insight, a source of opening doors and facilitating learning in the future. That just because we are separated by distance in this large geographical space that we live in, that doesn't mean that we can't work together, that we can't do things that empower each other. And I say that because the school benefits so immensely from each of you, both in your time when you're with us, but also when you leave, because your expertise, learned experiences in the years ahead are the kinds of insights that enhance the future opportunities of our students. So the career experiences that you gain in the years ahead, we hope we can call on you and say, come back to the classroom and help us understand what you're working on. Help us empower a student 10 years from now, understand the cutting edge issues of the day that you are confronting in your work or your communities or the organizations that you're working with. So I really want to just stress that we are all here on this journey together, and that I really hope that in your time at Carleton, you have felt welcomed into our community, and that experience will just broaden when you leave our virtual halls now as compared to in-person halls. And I think it's really key to remember these things, particularly at this time, because there are so many things that are happening in the world. The world is currently in upside down turmoil, turbulence that, it's not unprecedented. Certainly every generation has challenges, but it seems as though the challenges are coming fast and furious and in so many different ways, from the wildfires or the climate fires raging in California, Oregon and Washington, to the people in the streets demanding justice for the persistent and long-standing injustices brought against Indigenous peoples and African Americans, Black people in Canada and the United States, and just the realization of our collective interdependence, and how fragile that is when a small virus can overtake and render essentially incapacitated our social systems, our economies, various things that we take for granted in our societies. These are huge challenges, right? They're not going away. They're going to be with us for years to come. And I think remembering that we each need to persevere in those, but that collectively we can be stronger in addressing them. That's something that I hope each of you have learned in the classroom environment, that working together and learning from our peers, being open to new insights is really a source of strength and a source of opportunities for new solutions. So I really look forward to being in my position for years to come and being able to see what each of you do in your careers. I hope that you find ways to help accomplish the public good in whatever fashion you have the opportunity to serve in, to work to bring people together, to direct their energies towards some kind of common good. I hope that is your work, your professional work and your personal work. And know that the school is always here. We've been here for a while, and we really find such reward and benefit from seeing what our graduates can do in their careers. So I will look forward to hearing about those accomplishments in the years to come. And for those of you who are graduating, once again, a huge congratulations from myself, my colleagues, the whole school. And for those of you who are in the midst of your studies, good luck, stay the course. And we're obviously here to help and support you in your educational endeavors. So again, thanks for this opportunity, and I will pass the torch back to Jerry.
Thank you, Graeme, and thank you so much for everything that you do for us in the school and in our program. We really appreciate it. In spite of the challenges that we've faced as a community these past 6 months, we have much to celebrate, including the work of our dedicated faculty and staff. In addition to Professor Minich, Professors Francis Abel, Catherine Graham, Craig Brown, and Terry Goodtrack have contributed much to our community this past year, and I'm thrilled to be joining them as part of the IPA team. For those of you who haven't met me yet, I joined the school in July. I'm a settler scholar of Scot-Irish descent who was born and raised in Upper Canada Treaty Number 29, the Huron Tract Purchase, which is on the traditional and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe people and the Kettle and Stony Point and Amnijong First Nations in a town called Goderich, Ontario. I'm a graduate of Carleton and the school, and before returning to my alma mater here, I was a professor at Bishop's University in Lennoxville, Quebec. In terms of my research, what do I do here? I study Indigenous settler intergovernmental relations, Northern political development, and public administration. And I'll be teaching research methods this fall. So for those of you who are currently students, I very much look forward to seeing you in my class. But along with Sheila, our amazing community coordinator and administrator, I really look forward to working with each of you as the graduate supervisor as you work your way through this program and eventually join the ranks of our alumni. So our door is always open, and I hope that you will connect with us virtually and hopefully one day in person when we can be together again. As I said, we have much to celebrate here in the school and in the IPA, including our researchers. So now I would like to call on Professor Catherine Graham to introduce our next speaker.
Sorry, I thought you were going to unmute me, but I can do it. Thank you very much, Jerry, and hello, everyone. I'd like to add my personal congratulations to everyone who's graduating today in this celebration, and to welcome and thank everyone who's in the process of getting their IPA for joining. This is an opportunity to be part of a community, as others have said, and I'm really pleased to see that there is a mixture of people from the generations of IPA students who are participating today. I hope wherever you are in your program, you have got the idea that the people who are at the front of the classroom are themselves active in issues of the day, both contemporary issues and also understanding the past as a way to a better future. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge the incredible role that my colleague and friend Frances Abel has played. First of all, in spearheading the development of the IPA itself. She was the person there writing the proposals, doing the lobbying within the university and outside, and actually bringing the program to life. And that is an incredible accomplishment in today's world. Frances has passed the baton of leadership on to Jerry, which we're all extremely excited about and pleased about. Probably no one more so than Frances herself, since in this spring term, she learned that she was the recipient of a $2.5 million Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council Partnership Grant for a project called Transforming Indian Act Governance. This is a partnership grant in every sense of the word. She'll be leading a team of about 50 researchers, collaborators, and partners with communities actually driving the process of determining how they can best lead the Indian Act. So I'd like to call on Frances to tell us a little bit more about her project. But before I close my mic and ask Frances to open hers, I think we all need to recognize this incredible achievement.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, everybody. I've been flipping through looking to see who's here at our meeting, and I'm very happy to see many people that I've taught and to hear the names of all the graduates that we can celebrate this year. So welcome to everybody, all of the students who are here, and congratulations to the graduates. It's the best time for us when this happens, and all of us feel good for several weeks after we have an event like this, because it's so nice to see it completed. And it's very nice to have all of you here. The first thing I have to admit is that we actually changed the name of the project, Catherine. We haven't told you yet. So we're now calling it the Rebuilding First Nation Governance. And we did that because we started thinking about transforming Indian Act governance over 10 years ago. And we began to work on this, building up the team that would work on this grant then. And at that stage, what brought everybody together was a commitment to get out from under the Indian Act. There were, we must have involved 20 or so First Nations and two tribal councils in these discussions. Not everybody joined the grant on the first round. So it's a partnership of 6 First Nations and 2 tribal councils, several NGOs, including the Institute for Public Administration of Canada, and Dark Matter Labs, who, with their sinister name, Strange, they're an English outfit, but they're really good at knowledge mobilization. So that's what they're doing on the project, as well as professors from 6 Canadian universities. So that's the team. My co-director is Satsan Herb George, who many of you will know. He's had a distinguished career. He was part of the team that brought about the Delgamuukw decision. He was the founder of the National Centre for First Nations Governance. He's the reason it survived the Harper government's cutting of their funding. And he reinvented it as the Centre for First Nations Governance, and they are the primary partner with Carleton for this project. We also have a team of 4 professors and 4 practitioners. I'm sorry that President Froh is gone. One of them is her brother, James Froh. He's been a wonderful partner to Jamie Lavallee at the University of Saskatchewan. We also have 2 people on the West Coast, Terry Bissett, who's originally from Treaty 7 but lives on the island and is associated with the University of Victoria, and Chris Robertson, who's from the Centre for First Nations Governance. In Ontario, Dwayne Nashkawa and David Newhouse. David is at Trent. Dwayne is the CEO of Nipissing First Nation. And in the Peace and Friendship Treaty area, Darcy Gray, who's a graduate of our program, this program, the Indigenous Policy and Administration, and Naomi Natalik, a law professor at Dalhousie. So that's the core team, that's the steering committee of the project. And as Catherine said, there are about 40 other academics who are brought into the project based on what they can contribute to various projects. The concept is that we start working with First Nations who are ready to start the journey of redesigning their own governance. The academics are not the leaders in this project. The First Nations are the leaders. And we've designed a research agenda that responds to the initial needs that these First Nations will have. And also we plan to continue to document their process, but also to provide research as we go along. A big part of this enterprise is knowledge mobilization. And Catherine McQuarrie, who many of you will know, she's a research fellow in the school, recently retired from the government of the Northwest Territories, and before that, the federal government. She's Métis from the Northwest Territories. She was in one part of her life a journalist as well. She's a highly accomplished person, and thank goodness she's agreed to work with us as the project manager and to work on knowledge mobilization, because our idea is to share with the world the lessons that First Nations are learning as they begin this journey. Our view is that it's not important to worry about government recognition in this process. There's enough room for governments to be built by the First Nations themselves. And when we run into an institutional obstacle, well, that's the job of the research team to work on that, to figure out alternatives. Now, we had a different plan for year one, which we're in, than we have now. Because of COVID, there can be no work in communities or no visits to communities. The communities will be working, but not with us, not directly with us. So we've built what we call the foundational research agenda, we being the steering committee that I'm talking about. And we're trying to do a body of work that will be useful for the next 5 years of the project as it becomes possible to do more work in First Nations and for First Nations themselves to visit each other so that they can share experiences. We need a ton of research assistance. So part of what I'm doing today is hoping to attract your interest. We pay well, we're really nice to work with, and it's important, interesting work in a wide variety of areas. You might end up working with Kira Ladner or John Burrows on traditional forms of Indigenous governance. You might end up working with other people on financing issues. We're putting together a team of actually a small task force to work on financing because it's so important. Every one of our research areas of interest requires some help from students. You don't have to make a 10-hour-a-week, 2-term commitment. We're interested in hiring people who have something to bring to the project. And we're already working with AMC Miracle, who's in the 2nd year of the master's program, but there's room for more. So I would invite all of you to get in touch with me. I'm not hard to find, and let me know of your interest in doing some work on this project. I've tried to recruit some of you already, and maybe, personally, I would like to hear from you if you're interested. I think, is that everything I wanted to say? Pretty much. So thank you for your attention. I think I'm holding up the music too, so let's go.
Thank you, Frances, and congratulations again for this. We can't wait to learn from you and from this project and the results that you and your team and partners will bring forward. So to conclude today's formal program, I'd like to invite Ms. Alicia Blore to perform the Red River Jig as a way to send off each of us as we move forward with our fall and our graduates onto their next adventure. Alicia?
Hey, can you hear me? Awesome. Hi. Well, thanks for inviting me. Hi, Sheila. And I even see a people that I know. Isn't this great? Hi, Anna. I was not expecting to see friendly faces on here. So yeah, my name is Alicia. I currently work for the Métis Nation of Ontario, but I decided to take an early Friday off to perform and play a few traditional Métis style fiddle tunes for you. I thought I'd liven up maybe with, can I play 2 tunes? All right, cool. So I'll play for you the first tune I'll play will be the Lord MacDonald's Reel. And what I really like about this tune is that it really tells the story of the Métis people. So this tune originates in Scotland. If you hadn't already noticed, Lord MacDonald, very Scottish sounding. So it's a tune known all over Scotland, and it makes its way across the Atlantic Ocean with the influx of fur traders. And these fur traders travel all throughout Canada on the various fur trade routes. And this tune actually ends up in a community of Ebb and Flow, Manitoba, or Bacon Ridge, Manitoba, which are both really small. Ebb and Flow is a First Nations community, and Bacon Ridge is a Métis community nearby. So it ends up in this really rural town in Manitoba. And I learned it from an elder there named Teddy Boy Hoole, who has unfortunately recently passed away. So I thought I would share one of his tunes with you called the Lord MacDonald's Reel. But this version is much, much different than the ones in Scotland because of all, it evolved over time. And what I always say is it evolved for the better. So I like my version better. All right, I'm gonna grab my fiddle and I'll play the Lord MacDonald's Reel. So it wouldn't be a Métis social without the Red River Jig. So I'm going to play for you 2 versions of the Red River Jig. The first one, again, comes from Teddy Boy Hoole, who's from Ebb and Flow, Bacon Ridge, Manitoba. And then the second one I'm going to play is for is sort of the competition style Red River Jig that you would play for the dancers. So if anyone's up for dancing, feel free. The Red River Jig is probably the most well-known fiddle tune, as well as our most popular dance, and it's often known as the unofficial national anthem for the Métis, because it doesn't matter which community Métis community you're from across the homeland. We all seem to know a version of this tune or several versions of this tune, and we all know how to, we all know a version of how, of the jig, Red River Jig. Yeah, so here we go. I'm gonna play for you two versions of the Red River Jig. And I thought I would mention, I'm actually doing a virtual gig tomorrow, so if you want more fiddle music and more fun, just check out my Facebook page, Alicia Blore, and yeah, the details will be there. So here we go, Red River Jig. Thank you again for having me. Oh, Sheila's gonna do it. Awesome. If anyone wants to join her, feel free. All right, here we go.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for that performance. It was absolutely beautiful in a wonderful way to end this celebration. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This concludes our formal program. For those of you who could not join us today, congratulations and all our best wishes.